Hi everybody, Josh here, recording from the home office, and I wanted to bring some words for the most relieving, the most comforting Shabbos of the year, Shabbat Nachamu, which this year happens to coincide with the Sadie Hawkins Day of the Jewish calendar, Tu B'Av, our holiday of love. So here comes some loving and comforting thoughts. This is a Dvar Torah called Speak to the Heart. From the lowest to the highest, from the depths to the heavens. In one meager week in the Jewish calendar, we move from the hardest, heaviest day of the year to one of our zeniths of joy. There is something famously whole about the number 7, implying a complete set, a fulfillment of what is possible. The time of our joy is numbered 7, Zman Simchatenu, referring to Sukkot, and the time of our loss is also numbered 7, as we observe Shiva. The week that begins with Tisha B'Av, a gutting memorial to the loss of Zion, concludes 7 days later with Tu B'Av, identified by the Gemara as one of the 2 happiest days of the year. The last Mishnah in Masechet Ta'anit, the Talmudic tractate on fasts, reads, "There were no happier days in Israel than the 15th of Av, Tu B'Av, and Yom Kippur, a minor holiday that is seen as a kind of Jewish Valentine's Day. How could it be seen as an acme of our joy? And how could it stand next to our holiest day on equal footing?" Tu B'Av is a day that celebrates love. As the Mishnah describes, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out in borrowed white garments, so no one would be embarrassed for what they owned or did not, and would go out and dance cholot, circle dances, in the vineyards. There they would look for connection, with the women taking the initiative and finding a loving partner. Tradition identifies Tu B'Av as the day that the death of the generation in the desert ceased. So, on the anniversary of the end of death, we commit to life and look for love. And the love is not only focused on romance alone, but the stipulation that only borrowed white garments are worn means that a kind of mutual aid was practiced, in which the women looked out for one another, making sure that no one was above anyone else. The famed Mishnah commentary Bartanura writes that even wealthy women wore borrowed garments, so no one who lacked finery would be ashamed. Their shared commitment to equity manifests in their chosen dance as well, as the machol, as described in the Mishnah, is a circle dance, in which no one is in front or behind another. Everyone in the circle is equidistant from the center, lending it a utopian spirit. Indeed, the concluding passage of the Gemara's discussion of this very Mishnah describes that kind of dance, a circle dance, which was led in the Messianic period, which will be led in the Messianic period, in Gan Eden, with God's self in its midst. The other special day following Tisha B'Av is Shabbat Nachamu, the Sabbath of comfort, which, this year, coincides with Tu B'Av. It's amazing! After the 3 harrowing weeks of Haftorahs focused on our shortcomings and God's coming judgment, Shabbat Nachamu initiates more than double prophetic readings that draw our attention to God's love and care, how the bond between us will never be broken, as we read for the next 7 weeks, the Shabbat Nachamu, the 7 weeks of comfort, Haftorahs that reinforce that theme. The passages chosen by the rabbis for these weeks following the day we inhabited utter loss are suffused with images of partnership, of marriage, of romance that characterize our connection with God. A relationship is not merely something that is broken, never to be repaired. Rather, it is through hardship and hard times that a bond of love is strengthened by learning and growing together through it all. A midrash on this Haftorah, from the Tannaitic work Psikta Rav Kahana, sees an active and dynamic heart evident in this passage. From this we can say that the heart sees, the heart hears, the heart speaks, the heart knows, the heart lasts, the heart falls, the heart moves, the heart cries out, the heart rejoices, and the heart is comforted. Since the heart is so dynamic, one must be attentive and responsive to speak to it in the way that the heart needs. to attend to where and how it is, and to meet it where it lies. The verse used to prove this last feature of the heart, its being comforted, is the first verse of this week's Haftorah. It reads, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, be comforted, my people. Speak to the heart, Jerusalem, Dabru Alev Yerushalayim, and tell her that her time of trial is over. In his commentary, Ibn Ezra notes the emotional sensitivity within Isaiah's words. Speak to the heart means to speak gently and kindly, to help alleviate sorrow and regret of the past. What is called for after a painful time, after a time one wishes one could take back, is the need to be kind, to be tender. Healing in a relationship does not come through making someone pay, but rather through the daring act of trust and belief in another, that they mean it when they say they're sorry. There is perhaps no more radical act of faith than that of forgiveness. God does not harangue us after our litany of misdeeds and betrayals, detailed so vividly these past 3 weeks, but rather returns to us with words of gentleness and of comfort, and with acceptance, which sets a model for us all. The image of redemption that follows the devastation of Tisha is not that of justice wreaking vengeance on those who have wronged us, or a cataclysmic reordering society. Rather, it's a choreography of compassion that anticipates a time in which all can find love. There is something deeply intuitive in the calendar's own choreography, in noting that grief and loss are not things that simply are left behind, but are rather states that require response, a process to work through and support. That is, the redemption following Tisha B'Av comes not through one's emotional or spiritual state changing on its own, but rather in an interpersonal practice of care. A person in mourning does not heal themselves, and a prisoner cannot set themselves free. Tu B'Av and Shabbat Nachamu provide the framework in which we start to crack open the isolating shell of grief and look to one another. The Haftorah seems to instruct Isaiah to speak gently to Jerusalem's heart. But the verse could also be read in the imperative, that the Jewish people are told to speak to each other's hearts. We are called to attend to one another, to care for one another. In healing, we are not merely looking to be the beneficiaries of care, but the daughters of Jerusalem model what it means for people to both be recipients and providers of love. We heal in our committing ourselves to heal others. As noted above, Tu B'Av is placed on equal footing with Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year. The fact that the Day of Atonement is seen as one of the year's happiest is already surprising, since isn't it a day replete with fasting and penitence? Isn't it more like Tisha B'Av than like Tu B'Av? The Bartanura in his commentary on this perplexing Mishnah provides an answer. Yom Kippur is one of the 2 most joyous days because it was the day that the second tablets were given. The trials of the 3 weeks began with the 17th of Tammuz, and one of the tragic events memorialized is that of Moshe breaking the tablets. The process ends not with recompense, but with repair, as a set of new stones is provided. But it's not really the rocks that matter. It's the second chance that comes with love. Love, after all, is made of second chances. Shabbat Nachamu Shalom and Tu B'Av Sameach. Speak soon.